Monday, October 6, 2025. Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is the space where we sift through all the noise, the headlines from the last couple of days, both globally and right here at home. And we try to synthesize it all, turn it into something useful for you, the learner. Today, it's a day of really high stakes, wouldn't you say? We're looking at everything from microscopic biological control to huge geopolitical moves and, well, pretty serious economic situation brewing in Central America.
It really is a study in contrast today. I mean, 1 minute we're talking about this incredible scientific breakthrough that could change how we treat chronic diseases, and the next we're decoding, aggressive political language in these high-risk plays in the Middle East. And all the while, we have to connect it back to what's happening here in El Salvador. Things like, massive public debt and these really predatory loan rates. So yeah, our goal isn't just to read the headlines, it's to get underneath them, understand how things connect.
Exactly. We wanted to get straight into it. And just quickly, if you find this deep dive valuable, you can help us keep it going. All the ways to contribute: PayPal, crypto, they're in the description of this content. Check it out if you can. All right, let's kick off with that huge international story, the one impacting fundamental human health. The 2025 Nobel Prize in Medicine, it's been awarded.
Yes, and it's a really foundational moment for immunology. The Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine for 2025, it goes to 3 absolutely brilliant scientists. Mary Brunkow, she was born in 1961. Fred Ramsdell, who's 64. And Shimon Sakaguchi, he's 74.
Okay, 3 pioneers. And their work, it's cited for discoveries about peripheral immunological tolerance. That sounds incredibly technical. Can you break that down for us? What does it mean, and why is it worth, 11 million Swedish kroner? About 1.2 million US dollars.
Right. Well, think about your immune system. It's designed to be, ruthless, right? It has to destroy viruses, bacteria, all the invaders. But the really tricky part, the body's big challenge, is making sure it doesn't turn on itself, doesn't attack your own healthy organs and tissues. When that fails, that's when you get autoimmune diseases. Things like lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, type 1 diabetes.
Okay, so it's like the immune system is the army, right? And these scientists, they found the MPs, the ones who check IDs and make sure the army isn't attacking its own soldiers.
That's a great analogy, actually. Precisely. The Nobel Committee called their discovery finding the guardians of the immune system. These specific cells are called T regulatory cells, or Tregs for short. They're a type of T cell, but their main job is suppression. They actively step in and stop other immune cells from launching these peripheral attacks against the body's own stuff. Before their work, we kind of knew the problem existed friendly fire, but we didn't know the specific soldiers, the Tregs, responsible for preventing it.
Right, so now we know who the guardians are.
Yeah.
How does knowing that change things? For treating diseases like cancer or those autoimmune conditions you mentioned. This is the applied part, right?
Oh, absolutely. The practical side is revolutionary because it allows for precision. Think about it. Historically, if you had an autoimmune disease, treatments often involved broad-spectrum immunosuppressants, basically drugs that just shut down your entire immune system, which, leaves you incredibly vulnerable to infections. It's a blunt instrument.
Hey, that ideal.
Not at all. But now, knowing about Tregs, we can think about targeted therapies. We can try to dial the activity of these specific Tregs up or down.
Okay, how would that work?
Well, for autoimmunity, say type 1 diabetes, where the immune system attacks the pancreas, researchers are working on ways to boost Treg activity just in the pancreas. Maybe using engineered antibodies or even cell therapies to tell the Tregs there, hey, calm things down locally without weakening the immune system everywhere else. And conversely, for cancer, tumors are sneaky. They often manipulate Tregs to suppress the immune response against the cancer cells.
They use the guardians against the body.
Exactly. So new cancer treatments are focusing on Treg blockers, ways to essentially tell the Tregs near the tumor to stand down, unleashing the full force of the immune system against the cancer. It's a massive shift from just, crude suppression to really sophisticated cellular level control.
Wow, that's genuinely game-changing. Moving from just managing the damage to actually intervening strategically. Huge. Okay, let's pivot hard now. From the microscopic battlefield inside us to the global geopolitical chessboard. And here, the stakes are just as high, maybe even higher, potentially involving, mass destruction of a different kind. Let's unpack the news coming out of Gaza and the U.S. involvement. Specifically, President Trump's latest statement. It's pretty explosive.
It is. The language itself is, frankly, unprecedented in recent diplomatic terms. President Trump issued a direct ultimatum to Hamas. He warned them of total annihilation if they don't give up control of the Gaza Strip. I mean, that's about as maximalist as public pressure gets.
Total annihilation. Definitely not your usual diplomatic phrasing. So what's actually in the proposed plan that this ultimatum is backing, and who else is involved in trying to broker this?
Okay, so the plan itself, it's been mediated primarily by the U.S., but with Egypt and Qatar playing key roles as regional brokers, It hinges on a critical first step. Hamas has to release all the Israeli hostages they're holding in Gaza. In exchange, Palestinian prisoners held by Israel would be released, and the swap is supposed to be followed immediately by a total ceasefire. And reports indicate that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is actually preparing to implement this first phase. So there seems to be significant buy-in from the Israeli side, even if it's likely controversial internally.
Yeah, with rhetoric that strong, the political optics are extreme too.
Okay.
Which brings us to that really unusual request from the hostage families.
Exactly. It speaks volumes about their desperation, doesn't it? The families of the Israeli hostages actually requested the Nobel Peace Prize for President Trump before any deal was even struck. It shows this immense hope, maybe faith, that his, let's say, decisive strong-arm approach could succeed where months of other diplomacy haven't. That total annihilation threat, it's clearly a negotiation tactic, too, putting enormous public pressure on Hamas and anyone backing them.
Right. And at the same time, all this high-level maneuvering is happening. There was that incident with the global Samud flotilla trying to bring aid in.
Yes, that situation escalated significantly when Israel intercepted the flotilla and deported 171 activists who were on board. And the most prominent name among them, the one grabbing headlines, was the 22-year-old Swedish climate activist Greta Thunberg. Her treatment has sparked its own international backlash.
Yeah, the reports about her deportation were quite disturbing. What were the specific claims made by the journalists who witnessed it?
The most detailed account came from an Italian journalist, Lorenzo Agostino, who was apparently there during the deportation process. Agostino reported that Thunberg was allegedly subjected to humiliation. Specifically, he claimed she was wrapped in an Israeli flag and sort of displayed like a trophy by some personnel involved. He described the whole atmosphere surrounding the deportations as, quote, barbaric. It suggests that, in this incredibly charged environment, the goal wasn't just removal, but maybe public degradation, trying to discredit international activism in the region.
A very ugly scene. Okay, moving away from the Middle East now, but staying with the theme of state power being applied, let's look at China.
Right. China's anti-corruption campaign, it continues relentlessly and very publicly. It seems designed to show that absolutely no official is untouchable. The latest high-profile case involves the former Minister of Agriculture, Tang Renjin. He's 63, and he's been handed a suspended death sentence with a 2-year reprieve.
Can you explain that for listeners? A suspended death sentence, what does that actually mean in the Chinese system?
Sure. It's a pretty standard sentence in these major corruption cases handled by the Communist Party of China, the PCCH. Essentially, it means the death sentence is pronounced, but it's put on hold for 2 years. During that time, the person is imprisoned, and if they demonstrate good behavior, cooperate, show remorse, then the sentence is almost always commuted, usually to life imprisonment without parole. It serves a dual purpose, sends a very strong political message about the severity of the crime, but leaves room for, cooperation.
Got it. And the scale of the corruption Tang Renjin was found guilty of?
It was massive. The court found he accepted bribes, both cash and goods, worth the equivalent of about 38 million US dollars. And this wasn't a short-term thing. It happened over a long period from 2007 all the way up to 2024. Importantly, he'd already been kicked out of the Communist Party for what they called grave disciplinary violations and unrestrained greed. They also specifically criticized him for being ineffective in putting in place decisions and taking decisions blindly. So it highlights that this anti-corruption drive is as much about enforcing political loyalty and efficiency as it is about just money.
Interesting. Meanwhile, shifting to Western Europe, a sudden political change in France.
Yes, quite abrupt. The French Prime Minister, Sébastien Lecornu, resigned suddenly. He cited a lack of conditions needed to do his job effectively. This came right after President Emmanuel Macron announced a cabinet reshuffle. A public resignation like that, it usually points to some pretty serious disagreements or friction right at the top of government about the direction they're heading.
Okay. And finally, on the global stage, a reminder that nature doesn't wait for politics. weather continues to cause major problems.
Definitely. We saw Hurricane Priscilla strengthening to a Category 1 storm out in the Pacific, prompting coastal warnings. And tragically, in Asia, the monsoon season continues to wreak havoc. Heavy rains triggered severe floods and landslides across parts of India and Nepal. The death toll from those events has sadly climbed past 63 people. And closer to home, right on the border, intense rain caused a huge landslide at Derumbe in Guatemala. It completely blocked the main route towards El Salvador at kilometer 24. Reports said travelers had to abandon vehicles and proceed on foot, just a major disruption.
A stark reminder of how vulnerable our infrastructure can be, especially with these intense weather patterns. Monday, October 6, 2025. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Remember, if you want to collaborate or donate to help pay for the platforms that host this content, you can do so through PayPal. The link can be found in the description of this podcast content. You can now make your contribution or donations via any cryptocurrency wallet. The Bitcoin QR code can be found on the cover of this content. Scan it and send your contribution or donation, which, no matter how small, helps us continue with this project. Collaborate, follow us, share, and comment. Okay, let's pivot now. Bring it back home to El Salvador and really dig into the economic picture, because this is where things get, well, really interesting, maybe quite worrying. We're seeing the official economy, the digital world, and this huge informal financial sector all kind of colliding.
Absolutely. The country's financial health is definitely being tested right now. There's the massive public debt we need to talk about, but also this really critical crisis happening in the informal lending market. The data we have on what they call usury, it's deeply concerning.
Okay, let's put some numbers on that. Just how big is this unregulated loan market?
Well, the estimates for 2024 suggest that credits granted by these informal lenders, essentially loan sharks, exceeded $1.2 billion US dollars. $1.2 billion. That's an enormous amount of money flowing completely outside the formal banking system, outside of any real regulation or oversight.
Wow, $1.2 billion. That's staggering. Who is actually taking out these kinds of loans? And why can't they get money from, regular banks?
The majority, more than half, are micro and small businesses. The mics, as they're known here. They often find themselves shut out of the formal financial system. Why? Well, maybe they don't have the collateral banks require, or they can't navigate the complex paperwork, or they just don't have the kind of credit history banks look for. Their businesses might be seen as too small, too informal, maybe too risky for traditional lenders. They need cash fast, and these informal lenders provide it instantly, but the cost.
The cost is the interest rate, right? And this is the number that really jumps out.
It's astronomical. The reports indicate that for these MIPS, the informal credit rates can hit, get this, up to 1,859%.
1,859%. That can't be right.
It is 1,859%. Let's be very clear. That's not a business loan. That's economic servitude. An interest rate like that makes it virtually impossible for most of these small businesses to ever succeed or get ahead. It almost guarantees they'll be trapped in a cycle of debt. It really highlights a massive systemic failure in financial inclusion, something that security measures alone, no matter how tough, just can't fix.
How is that even possible? Are there no laws against that kind of rate? Or do these lenders just operate completely outside the law?
They operate completely outside the formal systems laws. Traditional usury laws apply to banks and regulated institutions. These informal lenders work in the shadows. They often rely on intimidation, aggressive collection tactics, and frankly, the sheer desperation of the borrowers. To really tackle this, you'd need a two-pronged strategy. Yes, crack down hard on the illegal lenders, but also, crucially, provide a real, accessible, low-interest alternative through the formal system for these MIPS.
A huge challenge. Okay, meanwhile, at the complete opposite end of the financial world, the digital side is seeing records.
It certainly is. Bitcoin, the biggest cryptocurrency, just hit a new all-time high. It surpassed $125,000 per coin, which is obviously significant news for El Salvador, given its national adoption of Bitcoin as legal tender.
Right, and this record high comes just as the government is trying to implement more rules around digital assets. Tell us about that new regulation.
Yeah, there's a new anti-money laundering law coming into effect, or just recently enacted. It's specifically designed to regulate investment banks, but also, importantly, providers of digital assets and Bitcoin services. The aim seems to be to bring this whole ecosystem more into the formal, regulated sphere, trying to ensure that large crypto transactions meet international standards, prevent money laundering, the usual concerns. But here's where it gets potentially interesting, connecting back to the MIPS. Well, if the government can successfully regulate and legitimize some crypto-based lending operations, even if they still carry risk, but are formalized and perhaps offer lower rates than 1,859%, could that provide a sort of digital lifeline? Could regulated crypto finance offer an alternative path for those MIPs currently trapped by the loan sharks? It's a fascinating potential intersection.
A potential disruption from the digital side into that informal market. Very interesting. But looking at the government's own books, the debt situation is also pretty stark, isn't it?
It is severe. El Salvador's total public debt, and this includes the government's pension obligations, which is key, has now gone over $33 billion. Now, if you measure that against the country's expected GDP for 2024, it represents a debt-to-GDP ratio of about 93%. Basically, almost the entire value of everything the country produces in a year is equivalent to what it owes. That's a heavy burden. And specifically, that pension debt component, it grew by another $444 million just up to August. So this highlights a long-term structural fiscal pressure that future generations will have to deal with.
A really tough fiscal picture. Before we shift gears to security, we should probably acknowledge the major economic force working for the country, coming from outside. Migrant contributions.
Yes, you really can't discuss the Salvadoran economy without talking about the diaspora. Reports indicate that Latino migrants, including many Salvadorans, of course, are contributing massively to the U.S. economy. The figure cited is generating something like $1.6 trillion for the U.S. GDP. That economic power translates very directly back here through remittances. Those funds sent home are absolutely critical for stabilizing household incomes, injecting vital foreign currency, and often providing that essential financial lifeline when local options are either predatory, like we discussed, or simply non-existent.
Yeah, a stark contrast indeed. The internal struggle with debt versus that powerful external engine. Okay, let's turn now to the national situation here in El Salvador. The government's focus on security remains front and center, but there are also ongoing infrastructure challenges and social issues affecting daily life.
The official narrative, certainly from the Minister of Security, Gustavo Villatoro, is unwavering. It's about ending impunity for crime. He recently reiterated that the days when criminals acted freely are over, and the last 48 hours saw quite a few specific police actions aimed at backing that up.
What were some of the key arrests or operations highlighted?
Well, there was a significant focus on homicide cases, it seems. In Santa Ana, police captured 2 men accused of a particularly brutal crime, murdering a man and then trying to burn his body to destroy evidence. Also in Santa Ana, a separate capture. Luis Antonio Rivera Gomez, arrested for allegedly attacking someone repeatedly with a knife. And then in Coapic, authorities reported capturing the suspected main perpetrator and 4 alleged accomplices in another homicide case there.
And this security push isn't just domestic, right? There's cross-border cooperation involved too.
Absolutely crucial. One notable recent case involved Oscar Armando Cortez Lopez. He's known by several aliases, Snoopy, Sloopy, or Scooby. Described as a dangerous gang member, he was actually captured over in Guatemala and then handed over to Salvadoran authorities at the border. It shows that coordinated regional security effort in action.
And are these arrests leading to convictions? Because that's the other side of ending impunity.
That's the key test, isn't it? And yes, there are reports of judicial follow-through. For instance, 5 members of the Barrio 18 gang were recently sentenced to 30 years in prison. Getting those convictions, and relatively swiftly, is essential for reinforcing the government's message that there are serious consequences now.
Okay, but alongside these security efforts, the weather continues to pose a real challenge, especially for infrastructure. The rains are causing problems.
Yes, the Ministry of Environment keeps issuing warnings about more rain and storms. This prompted the municipal government in San Salvador Centro to activate its emergency plan. We saw direct impacts too. A family had to be evacuated in La Union in the east due to flooding in their home. And infrastructure is definitely feeling the strain. We saw images of crews from the Ministry of Public Works, the MOP, working to clear another landslide, a derrumbe, this one on the highway to Panchamalco.
And all this rain, plus maybe other factors, seems to be contributing to a lot of traffic accidents too.
Unfortunately, yes. The last couple of days saw several serious incidents. Tragically, a motorcyclist died after falling into a ravine in San Pablo Tacachico, out in La Libertad. There was a public transport crash, too. A Route 205 bus hit a tree on the highway from Sonsonate towards San Salvador near Sacacoyo. The cause was cited as excessive speed and losing control. Then, a truck collided with a large semi-trailer, a Rastra, in Ciudad Arce, which backed up traffic significantly, reducing it to just one lane. And another truck accident, this one near Alaquilta on the highway to the airport, caused a big spill of beverages all over the road, requiring Foveal crews to come out for a major cleanup.
Just a reminder of the daily risks and disruptions on the roads. And amidst all this, the media is also keeping certain unresolved social issues in the spotlight.
Right. Specifically, you see continued coverage and public attention on the case of those footballers who disappeared from San Pedro Parilapan. Keeping stories like that alive in the public consciousness serves as a reminder that even with major security crackdowns, complex crimes and missing persons cases are still active challenges that require ongoing investigation and resources.
Definitely. Now, let's touch on a couple of other key domestic issues. Public services, specifically healthcare, and then a rather unique social regulation story.
On healthcare, there seem to be some worrying signs coming from the Salvadoran Social Security Institute, the ISSS. An organization representing healthcare workers, Symmetris, reported that based on complaints from both staff and patients, there were medicine shortages in at least 10 different ISS facilities during September. That's obviously a critical issue. Access to medicine is fundamental for public health and well-being.
Absolutely. And then the social story that got everyone talking, new rules in schools for the Civic Month.
Yes. This one definitely generated buzz. Apparently, as part of new civic guidelines, public schools, the center schools, have introduced a system of demerits for various infractions. But the rule that really caught fire online was the specific prohibition of the Edgar haircut. You know, the one that went viral on TikTok. That particular haircut is now officially banned in Salvadoran schools. It suggests, well, a pretty clear move by the Ministry of Education towards enforcing stricter standards of appearance, discipline, maybe a more traditional look in schools. It's sort of a cultural control measure aimed at youth trends.
A battle over haircuts. Fascinating. And finally, just a brief human interest update regarding a journalist.
Yes, Mario Guevara, a journalist who had been deported from the United States not long ago, was reportedly reunited with 2 of his children here in El Salvador. A moment of personal, though perhaps incomplete resolution after a difficult ordeal.
Okay, let's round out this deep dive with the world of sports and culture, always exciting, sometimes controversial.
Starting with Salvadoran football, La Selecta, the national team, they're facing some real challenges heading into a crucial match against Panama. Reports say they're now dealing with 5 players being unavailable due to injuries or other issues.
And the loss of Harold Osorio, that's a particularly big blow.
Oh, it's huge. Harold Osorio is officially out, sidelined for the rest of the current World Cup qualifying campaign. He's such a key player in the midfield. His absence really forces the coaching staff to completely rethink their strategy for these vital upcoming games. It's a major setback.
But it's not all bad news. Salvadoran players are still making waves internationally.
True. We've got positive updates from overseas. Joshua Perez is apparently performing well, boosting his club Odra Opel in Poland, and he's expected to join up with La Selecta soon. And Rayan Gil found the net again, scoring a winning goal for his team over in the Russian Premier League. So Salvadoran talent is definitely still visible on the international stage.
And back home, in the local league, one team is just dominating right now.
Alianza is on an incredible run. They just notched their 10th consecutive victory, beating Platense 2-1. And that win means they've now equaled a long-standing historical record for consecutive wins, set way back by Aguila. They are absolutely flying, setting the standard right now. Elsewhere, Sidra Metapan also kept their momentum going, grabbing their 3rd straight win against Zacatecoluca.
Good results. And beyond the pitch, there's significant recognition for Salvadoran refereeing, but also a call for reflection from the media.
Yes. On the positive side, Salvadoran referee Joel Aguilar Chicas has achieved a major milestone, joining the elite tier of FIFA referees globally. That's a real testament to the quality developing here. But alongside that, there was a pretty strongly worded editorial published, aimed squarely at Salvadoran fans and maybe society more broadly.
Oh, what was the message there?
It was basically a call for national maturity, urging the country to see hosting international events as an opportunity to show respect and dignity. It specifically warned against letting football passion turn into hatred or disrespect towards opponents, especially based on race or origin. It was a call for better collective behavior, essentially, asking the nation to look in the mirror.
An important conversation about sportsmanship and national image. Okay. Turning to the global football scene, some big news out of Europe.
Yeah, injuries are causing headaches. Rodri, the absolutely crucial midfielder for Manchester City and Spain, is injured again. He's now a major doubt for Spain's upcoming World Cup qualifiers, which is a big worry for them. And at the club level, Barcelona had a tough weekend. They lost to Sevilla, and that defeat cost them the top spot in La Liga. Reports afterwards mentioned players like Pedri calling for self-criticism within the team. Tough times there.
And then a really disturbing story emerged from Mexico involving a former player.
Yes, very serious allegations. Former Mexican international player Omar Bravo was detained. He's facing accusations of alleged sexual abuse involving a minor. It's obviously a major criminal matter, and the legal process will be watched very closely. A dark shadow cast over the sport there.
Indeed. Switching to tennis, all eyes are on Paris, where a familiar young star has a huge opportunity.
Carlos Alcaraz. He's got a shot at reclaiming the world #1 ranking. The equation is simple. If he reaches the final of the Masters tournament in Paris, he gets back to the top spot. So, huge pressure and a massive opportunity for him. And on a related note, another Salvadoran athlete succeeding abroad. Pablo Punit has become a champion again with his club in Iceland. Great news for him.
Fantastic. And the big boxing match everyone was talking about, it had a decisive result.
It did. Terence Crawford defeated Saul Canelo Alvarez by unanimous decision. This was a really commanding performance by Crawford, cementing his place among the very best pound for pound in boxing. A significant upset for many Canelo fans who expected him to dominate.
A major statement in the ring. And wrapping up the sports roundup, a good showing for El Salvador at the regional school games.
Yes, solid results at the Codecator Games. El Salvador picked up 3 gold medals and 1 bronze. It shows continued development of young athletic talent coming through the school system here.
Great to hear. Okay, finally, let's end with culture and entertainment, starting with some classic rock.
Legends were in town. Guns N' Roses played at the Estadio Mágico González just yesterday, October 5th. Reports called it an unforgettable rock night, saying the band made history. Packed stadium, huge event, successfully bringing major international music acts to the capital.
Epic. And then, arguably the biggest name in global music right now, Bad Bunny, finds himself in the middle of a political storm.
Yeah, it's quite something. Bad Bunny was announced as the headliner for the Super Bowl halftime show in 2026. Huge news. But almost immediately, a political ally of Donald Trump reacted by threatening to organize an immigration raid during the performance. It instantly turned this massive cultural event into a political flashpoint in the U.S.
Wow, that's an extreme reaction. How did Bad Bunny respond to that?
He responded with a mix of humor and defiance, really. He basically told Dominicans they had 4 months to learn Spanish before the show. And he added, significantly, "Our footprint cannot be erased," which is a clear statement about the growing and undeniable influence of Latino culture in the U.S. and globally. He also recently leaned into his roots in a fun way, making his debut on Saturday Night Live by playing the iconic character El Chavo del Eight from classic Latin American television. A really interesting cultural moment.
Absolutely. And locally, a popular tradition is bringing people together.
Yes. The Feria de la Cote Corona 2025 is underway up at Cerro Verde. It's drawing crowds, both tourists and local entrepreneurs celebrating the Jocote fruit. It's a nice mix of tourism, local crafts, food, art, and tradition, giving a boost to the local economy up there. You know, looking back over these headlines from the last 48 hours, what really strikes me is the sheer range of challenges and achievements happening simultaneously. On one side, you have El Salvador's government showcasing these very aggressive and seemingly effective tactics against crime, the captures, the quick convictions. But then you juxtapose that with this deep internal economic wound. The informal lending crisis, those unbelievable 1,859% interest rates crippling small businesses, and globally the stakes feel incredibly high everywhere you look, whether it's the Nobel Prize winners unliking fundamental secrets of our own bodies, or the high-wire geopolitical games being played out over Gaza, or even the way global culture and politics clash, like we see with the Bad Bunny situation. It's intense.
Yeah, it really is. So what's the takeaway here for you, the listener? We've gone from Bitcoin earning $125,000 to the T-regs guarding our immune systems. Maybe the common thread, the connection point, is this constant struggle for control. Control over the body's defenses, control over financial systems, both the official ones and the shadowy informal ones, and control over public spaces, narratives, even haircuts, whether it's in Gaza or China or right here in a Salvadoran school. It all seems to come back to control.
A day of truly high-impact events, no question.
Monday, October 6, 2025. Welcome back one last time to the Deep Dive. You can NAW make your contribution or donation via PayPal or through any cryptocurrency wallet. The Bitcoin QR code can be found on the cover of this content. Scan it and send your contribution or donation, which, no matter how small, helps us continue with this project. Collaborate, follow us, share, and comment. We really hope this synthesis has given you some clarity on the big picture from the last couple of days.
And just to leave you with something to think about this week, here's a final provocative thought. We talk about that staggering $1.2 billion flowing through informal loans, mainly to MIPS, at those crippling interest rates, nearly 1,900%. And we also talked about the new law aiming to regulate Bitcoin providers and digital assets. So here's the question. How might the formalization of digital assets, things like regulated crypto lending, which could offer global reach and maybe lower costs, how might that interact with and maybe even disrupt the entrenched world of traditional high-risk, high-interest usury here in El Salvador? Could this push towards regulated crypto actually offer an unexpected path towards financial inclusion for those very MIPS currently shut out and exploited?
Interesting question. Does formalizing the new potentially disrupt the old predatory system? Something to definitely ponder. Thanks for diving deep with us today.